I don't know what I'm doing today.
No, nor do I.
Yeah, but
back.
you always come to these things not having a fucking clue, and I have to fucking hold your hand through it and actually steer the conversation somewhere
Don't
interesting.
tell them you're holding my hand. You're not supposed to have any contact.
You just always interrupt me with your own stuff, and that's where we get our comedy from. I'm trying to steer it in a direction.
Oh, you're the serious one.
Have some sort of coherent structure, and you're.
What's this? Coherent structure. It's a visual
kneading
thing.
invisible pizza dough.
Are you?
Audio people. Wait.
The audio people.
If this goes before the intro, audio people won't be able to see that.
No. Audio people. Is that what we're calling them now? Audio people.
I thought that was what we've called them for a while.
Maybe it is. Maybe it isn't. I can't remember. It's been so long. What happened? Why did we stop?
What?
What happened? I can't remember why we stopped. It just all fell apart, didn't it?
Do you want to...
Drink beer?
Yeah, but do you want to do the intro?
Should we?
I mean...
Okay. Right then. Sorry, I just started.
It's off, you wanker.
We're out of practice. See, we got professional towards the end there, and now we're starting back at the beginning.
Are we?
Square one.
You might be fucking twat, but I'm doing it seriously.
You sound stoned.
Shut up. Well, it is 420, so who knows? Maybe the magic of weed permeates.
20th of April is what you,
Smoking it. I don't know.
Smoking.
Right. You rubbed yourself raw.
Just rubbing my eyeballs.
Okay. Hello, Internet. I'm Firebolt.
And I'm the Orbiter. I've done that for ages. War, this
What a shame.
Welcome back.
Do you need any introduction?
What's my name?
What? No.
What's the subject? What are we doing? What's happening? Why are we here?
Well, do we want to start with...
Welcome to episode 57, I think.
No, do you want to start with channel news, I guess?
Okay, let's channel our news.
Okay. We've been away for a while, I guess.
We've been here.
Well, yeah. But, you've been busy.
When was the last episode we recorded? What was the last episode? 56. Was it equality?
I think so, yeah. You've been busy. Working, moving stuff from rooms.
It was before Christmas, wasn't it? Last time we recorded?
I don't think so.
No? I don't even know what year it is. You just spat on my head.
It was before the whole quarantine thing, though. I think...
Yeah, well, that didn't happen until March.
Coronavirus was in the news when we were doing it.
Yeah, vaguely.
But I can't remember, so sorry if we repeat anything.
Yeah. We've got to make this entertaining, this.
But yeah, I've also been a mess, to be honest. For some I guess context, I remember one time falling asleep at 3 in the afternoon and waking up at 3 at night and then just continuing my day.
That wasn't so long ago, actually, either.
No, I mean, I think, I don't know why. I can't really explain my body's sleep cycle, but at least for the last few days, I seem to, like, my body seems to be naturally getting up at a sensible time.
There's a lot changed since the last time we podcasted, isn't there? Like, you don't have any exams anymore.
No,
Or concerts.
no,
Or anything.
no.
I kind of don't have anything either, but...
Well, you got Domino's.
Oh, you're not allowed to say that.
Am I not?
No, brand names. It's in my contract, not my contract, but it's in the company training that you're not supposed to mention the brand on any kind of media.
Well, edit that out.
Nah, it's all right, but just
You've
don't say
got-
anything bad about them.
Pizza brand that rhymes with Schmomino's.
I'm delivering pizzas for it. They're actually a really nice company to work for. I'm not just saying that.
You being held hostage.
No, and even if I was, it's kind of Stockholm pizza syndrome.
Okay.
Do you have pizzas in Stockholm?
What?
Do you think they have pizzas in Stockholm?
I would imagine so. It's not the fucking Amazon.
Do they not have pizzas in the Amazon?
Well, I imagine one would struggle to get one out of there.
Do you think you can order a pizza on Amazon?
Fuck it. Let's search it.
That would be the subject of the matter of the podcast thing. Let's make it a good one.
Okay.
There used to be just books, you know.
Mm-hmm.
What's that?
There's various pizza cutters, but no.
A bicycle pizza cutter. Wow. There's a pizza Bible.
Okay. And then, yeah, just various cookbooks on pizza.
Oh. So you can't order a pizza on...
Unfortunately, no, it appears.
Oh. Where is the Amazon anyway? South America?
Well done.
Is it in a specific country or...
It's kind of very big, so it's spread out over most of the countries in South America.
Yeah.
Most of it's in Brazil, but that's because Brazil's fucking big.
Yeah. So so what are we doing?
A podcast, Grandad.
Yeah, we were doing some channel news, weren't we? Catching up.
Yeah, have you just forgotten the last 10 minutes?
No.
I haven't seen the movie Memento, but
Memento?
Memento, is that it?
What are you talking about now?
There's a movie where someone keeps forgetting the day before, the last 15 minutes. I can't remember. I think it's got Adam Sandler in it. I'm not sure.
Oh, I don't know that one.
Is it Memento?
I don't know.
We appear to be having some
Memento movie. Memento,
yeah. Psychological thriller written by Christopher Nolan.
Neo-noir. New Black.
I guess.
Neo-noir psychology thriller. Well,
Maybe this isn't what I think it is. What is it?
I don't know.
Well, let's look at the plot.
I think we're going to...
Oh, I don't think this is the thing that I remember it to be.
So, yeah. Channel news, we're back up. Let's get on. So, what do we do first? The news, isn't it, really?
Yeah. Well... Yeah.
I'm finding it increasingly difficult on my other podcast finding anything to talk about because everything's staying the same at the moment.
Yeah, I mean... if you're not aware, and I don't know how you wouldn't be aware, there's currently a bit of a crisis going on in relation to coronavirus, or COVID-19 more specifically.
You say COVID, do you? Because I've heard it called COVID, and I don't think that's right. I don't agree with such pronunciation.
Okay, you seem quite offended by this.
Yeah. Well, I am.
Okay. Where have you heard this?
Well, first person I noticed saying it was Michael Gove.
Oh, well, I wouldn't trust anything coming out of that fucking aborted fish fetus's mouth.
Fish lay eggs.
Shut up. And that's why it's even more of an abomination. They somehow made a fish, a mammal, it got pregnant and got an abortion. That failed and survived, and the result was Michael Gove.
Do you think gove is a tense of the verb to give?
No.
Surely somebody can have gove somebody to something. Gove something to somebody.
It's maybe sort of like
I have been gove.
a confusing paradoxical tense where it actually means the opposite, as in he takes everything away from everyone that he's ever touched through his influence.
Yeah. First time I'd ever heard of him was when he was education secretary for a while, wasn't he?
Yeah, he did a brilliant job there.
I just remember a load of teachers slagging him the fuck off. And it was, yes.
And then I think he was environment secretary.
He does have a funny face.
Yes.
He looks like, I mean, I'd see, if Spitting Image was still around, it would be...
They were bringing that back, I think.
Yeah, wasn't it going to be more kind of global news, though? Like, I don't know what's happened with that now.
I don't know. I mean, no, a lot of things are sort of pausing their production because, like, people can't really get together anymore.
No, we should be 2 meters apart, really.
Fucking whatever. I mean,
we're in the same household, so
yeah.
I suppose that's,
you know,
what?
I mean, it's unlikely, given that you're taking the right measures when you are outside the house, that you would get it. And I haven't shown any symptoms, and I've been here for a month.
Pain at the moment. Yeah, I went to the co-op earlier on. Every time I go, there's not more severe restrictions, but they've kind of defined where you can go and how you can go there more, like, specifically. Now, I think they have a limit for how many people they can have in the shop. Anyway, and I think they police that by when there are that many, somebody stands at the door stopping anyone else coming in. But when you go in now, there's a strip of tape along the floor that you can't go past. You have to turn right when you go in through the door and go down the first aisle. There's 3 aisles in our co-op, so they have a one-way system where you can only come back up the middle aisle. So, I was going to get milk and beer. They're all in the 3rd aisle. So I had to go all the way down the first aisle. This is following somebody else who was picking up, like, doing like half a shop, really. They were just going really slowly. So I was having to wait for them to do their shopping, basically. I had to go all the way down the first aisle, back up the middle aisle, grab the beer and the milk going down the 3rd aisle, and then back up the middle aisle again to queue for the till. And then there's all like X marks the spot on the floor. You've got to stand there, and you can't approach the tills. You've got to stand behind a line. And they're all like caged in with plastic and stuff now.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't really been outside in.
You have to scan your own co-op card. I even have to, because I've got a student card, totem card, with my union membership. I have to reach under they step back from the till, and I have to reach under the plastic barrier thing and swipe my own student card on the till, and then they can step back again. And
ooh, big news! technically unemployed. I'm free, I guess.
You're still getting education maintenance allowance, though, aren't you?
I don't know. I mean, I got the last payment for that.
Yeah.
Even though like I wasn't there, but I'm not sure if I'd get it for term 4. I'm not sure what would happen with study leave with that anyway, though, because like, well, I couldn't get it last year because I was under 16, so not sure what happens with that. But officially, I've left my school. I've signed my leavers form, so I'm no longer attending secondary school. So, and also I haven't accepted any uni offers yet because Aberdeen's being slow for. I mean,
so are you technically not registered for any school at the moment? Then, was there a date on it, or have you just signed a leavers form in advance?
I don't know what the technical thing is, but like, I guess they've left that, and seeing as I'm not technically signed on to any uni course yet, I would count as unemployed, I guess. I don't know if like the system would still register me as being part of the Gordon schools, but oh wait, I probably shouldn't say that.
so
edit that out.
You actually don't know what you are then?
Well, everything kind of, in terms of organisation's kind of a bit up in the air right now.
It is.
Like I have no idea what's happening with my exam grades, really.
No,
not exam grades, but like they said that it would be like based on your prelims. So we had preliminary exams in January to. I mean, they're usually sort of a practice run, but I think they can use that if your actual exam goes really badly, or you miss it and also miss the resit exam.
I was going to mention to you about that, actually, not to worry too much about it, because there's the widening access criteria thing in Scotland where if you fit specific criteria, they prioritise, they can make allowances and prioritise for making offers to you that you might not otherwise get because of various things which you fit several criteria of.
All right.
Like living in a rural area, all sorts of stuff, like getting EMA. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I don't know how most of that works. It's been very, to be honest, I have explained, I think, in quite a lot of detail, the whole kerfuffle that was getting my UCAS reference done.
Kerfuffle.
It's a good word. We should use it more. Yeah, but I haven't. No one's really told me what to do with this, and like I've just had to like Google my way through it, which I guess is just becoming an adult. Well, like becoming an adult in the modern world.
Imagine.
Yeah, you couldn't do that when you were younger.
No, which is why I fucked everything up. Really, I turned up for my first day at college, without having
high as a kite.
What?
High as a kite.
No. I didn't. I wasn't that way inclined at that point. But not realising that I was supposed to have paid the accommodation up front for the first term.
Okay.
So technically I didn't really, and I didn't have the money because my grant hadn't come through yet to pay for it. So
did you have somewhere to go?
Yeah, I can't remember exactly what happened, but Nan probably paid the first instalment for me, and then but I just completely disorganised. But they're used to that. Things are a lot different nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, see, I don't know because there was
that competition.
Yeah,
there's closes in 2 days.
That's it. I mean, I'm not gonna be able to live away from home in the
No,
next.
it's a competition from the uni for winning your first year's accommodation for free.
But
I'd think about it myself, just for somewhere to stay when I'm in town, like if I've got a late gig or something. But I don't fancy sharing facilities. I'm too old for that.
yeah. How do you feel like going back to school? Kind of. I guess you've already
really
done it
school.
before. Well, going back to education, formal
Excited.
education. Okay.
Nobody really pays much attention to age at that level.
All right.
When I did my college course, I was the oldest one there, but there were various different aged people. You know, there were people in their 30s and people at various ages in their 20s. There were, I think, probably at least half of them were straight out of school, but nobody really. Don't know. I didn't get the impression that anybody treated anyone different because of their age. Although I might have, I suppose, kind of. Don't know, really. I didn't pay any attention to what they thought, to be honest.
Wow, it's not like you.
But yeah.
So yeah, with coronavirus. I mean, I've not been particularly closely watching the news. I've seen bits mainly on social media, so the reliability of the information there is not great always, but
Well, the reliability of the information you're getting on the mainstream news isn't that great either. I don't trust the figures that are coming out at the moment because I think they're being massaged by the government.
The UK figures?
Yeah. I mean, England, I think Wales as well, haven't been counting care home or deaths in the community. They've just been counting hospital deaths that specifically have tested positive.
So the problem with a lot of this is, I think, when you get into stuff like that, to understand a lot of the recent news and not go crazy and get the wrong idea, you kind of need to have a relatively good grasp of how statistics work, which most people don't. Just
No, well, that was the thing. I think there was a basic maths problem with people. A lot of people, I don't think, really can get their head around exponential growth.
no. I would think though, like with all that's been around. I mean, I guess there's a lot of conflicting information, but like they must like sort of see that like butterfly effect thing of one person infects two people, that'll infect four people if they infect two people each, that sort of thing.
Yeah, but it's like that grain of rice thing, isn't it, with the chessboard?
Yeah, that's quite. We did towards the end of biology a bit of work on logarithms, of exponential curves and stuff, and yeah, that example was used. The old story. I doubt it had much historical accuracy of a guy that I think this king owed a debt to or something. So he was like, "Oh, what can I do to repay you? What do you want?" And said, "For each square on this chessboard, I want you to double this 1 grain of rice as you go along each square. So second square get 2, third square get 4, and eventually it filled up the palace. And by the time you get to this 64th square, I think it like covers the whole area of the earth.
Yeah, I don't think. Yeah, there's not enough rice. And
I mean, I can just get a calculator up to basically show how that works.
but I think, I mean, I sit listening to watching the news, and there was another question asked the other day, because there was these statistics that were coming out, and the Office for National Statistics said that it was likely that there were at least 15% more deaths than the ones that were being recorded just in hospitals, because of the all the extra ones that were happening in care homes. And then either the same day or a day later, the care home organisation were saying that 50% of their care homes had cases of coronavirus in them. And the reporter was asking the health secretary why there was this discrepancy between why they were saying that there were 15% more deaths, and then the care homes were coming out with this figure of 50%. Why there was such a big discrepancy between them? I'm like, because they're talking about two completely different things. It's like, I don't know whether it was deliberate, but it is an example, I suppose, of spin, isn't it? Just making the figures look kinder and less catastrophic. But up here in Scotland, we've been counting care home deaths since not long after it all began. It was one of the first things Nicola Sturgeon did within about a week or so.
Yeah, I mean, based on what I've seen of like the difference between the UK government and our devolved government in Scotland, the Scottish government, from what I've seen, has been the first to act on a particular measure most of the time. Even when they had one case, they were taking it very seriously.
Yeah, I remember that, because it was round about the time that was all blowing up that it first started, that me and Mum went down to Manchester to see Embrace, didn't we? Just before all of that happened. And I can't remember the exact dates and timing, but it was up here that it was first. Yeah, there was the banning of all gatherings over 500 people, wasn't it, at first, that would require emergency services. But it quickly escalated to the situation we're in now.
Well, I remember the last day of my Saturday concert band, which is the junior one, which... Yeah, I think that's probably the last day ever of that, which is a bit sad. I'm not sure if I'll go back to the Tuesday one, because I'm not sure how transport would work for that, but we'll have to see, I guess.
Well, it starts a bit early, doesn't it? Depends on what you're doing with uni and that, really.
Yeah, life happens, I guess, so...
Remember the musical groups at uni as well.
Yeah, of course, which I want to do, even if I'm not doing the music course,
sure.
Because
music I know for a fact there's a symphony orchestra, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know about...
But from talking to my music teacher, who was there for my audition and was answering a lot of questions, because he went to the uni last year, just finished his course last year. So yeah, there is a symphony, there's various groups, and apparently they're fairly open to people from other courses.
Yeah.
I think that the orchestra's relatively high level though, and they're quite their positions are like high interest, I guess.
Yeah.
Compared to other groups, I suppose. But yeah, I remember on the last day of the junior concert band, as soon as you were in the door, they were like, wash your hands, make sure you don't touch anything before washing your hands.
Oh, right, okay.
And they had to get the brass players to clean up their own spit with paper towels.
Yeah, it's a bit of a daft situation, that, because, you basically any wind instrument, you're basically spraying germs out of an amplifier. Like, I mean, trumpet and trombone, any brass instrument, you're basically spraying germs, aren't you?
I guess. I mean, wouldn't have really thought of it as like that much, but I don't think coronavirus is like airborne. I think it just sort of stays on surfaces. But yeah, I guess if anything came out of the actual instrument, I mean, you'd know better than me because you played brass.
I'm pretty sure it is airborne.
Is it?
Well, it's the bigger droplets that carry it, like sneezing and coughing and stuff like that. So once it gets to really sort of fine aerosol particles, I think it's not so much then. But
I think it would be relatively fine for like a brass instrument, because that would be like just your breath, wouldn't it?
Yeah, but you do get. I mean, the reason that you get a spit valve is because there is moisture that comes with that. So
right, okay.
I mean, your lips are moist when they're vibrating.
Fun. By the way, actually, I've done this slightly wrong. It would actually be to that.
You're still counting rice, aren't you?
No, but yeah, that rice thing, that one grain after, I've done it as 2 to the power 63, because that would be like, to briefly explain.
Doubling every square on the chessboard.
Yeah, because for the second square, if that was 2, that would be 2 to the power of 1. So we take away 1 because it's.
So that you've got there, is that the number of grains on the last square?
Yes.
So what you would need to do then would be to add 1 to that, halve it, and then times it by 32. You get all of the squares.
Oh yeah, I didn't think of that actually. Yeah. Add 1, did you say?
Does that work?
I don't know.
No, it might not work with exponential growth, actually, that.
On the last square, it's
I'm not
see if I can work out how many.
That would only work, I think, if it was incremental.
Million, trillion, quadrillion, quintillion, sextillion, 9 sextillion.
I like
9.2 sextillion, roughly. So if that can happen, and that's just doubling 64 times, it's quite easy to see how coronavirus spreads very quickly when people aren't being fucking sensible. And it's really pissing me off, like, the amount of just weirdly, like, they seem to want to die
The protesters.
death cult, like.
Well, I suppose it's more for me. It's just, I think, about whether or not you care about other people, because
It's caring about other people, but I think it's that these
it's a much smaller risk, though. If you're looking statistically, there's a much smaller risk of you dying if you catch it than there is of somebody dying if you spread it.
But yeah, there's these far-right leaders that have sprung up in the last decade. Trump comes to mind, but also I did notice in Brazil there's similar protests.
Well, he's turning his own country against itself, isn't he, Trump, at the moment?
Yeah, I saw Bolsonaro, who's the president of Brazil. It's quite far right. He was basically addressing the crowd at one of these protests, saying that they're standing up for Brazil or whatever.
It's
Trump's been less direct, but he's still done very little to condemn it, and have just sort of said that, I think they'll be responsible and do the right thing. And it's been very critical of the governors actually doing the scientific thing to stop the spread of coronavirus.
Well, this is where I think that it's coming down to, and I think that we maybe can tie into the subject of this podcast, seeing as we're nearly 40 minutes into it, progress. That capitalism and the free markets and neoliberalism are being put to the test now, aren't they? Big time. Because putting aside whether or not you actually agree with the economic setup, there is like a balance to be struck at the moment between doing more damage through the measures that you take than the virus itself would do. But then you're kind of equating, you're kind of trying to assign a value to life then, aren't you?
Yeah, but I take the view that all that money isn't worth anything if it's not actually saving people, if it's not actually doing any good.
No. I think
it may as well just be written on a piece of paper, which it is, but like...
I think the majority of the world, I think, are, even if they're not implementing it as successfully as New Zealand have, she's doing an amazing job down there.
Yeah, I have seen that.
But in general, I think that most of the planet is taking it more seriously than the economic impacts.
Yeah.
At the moment, whether or not that's going to last is because, you know, it's exposing the weaknesses in our whole system, isn't it? Because if we get to a point where, yes, more people could end up dying through poverty because of the depression that's caused by all of this, then that's proof that our system doesn't work, which...
I mean, we've had that
anyway.
as that's been proven for the last 10 years at least after the financial crisis. I mean, homelessness in Britain, regardless of this crisis, is a crisis of its own. And the way that our governments treated our NHS, particularly the sort of things that are meant to deal with a pandemic like this, basically because they think their money's better off being saved, rather than actually putting it where it's supposed to be and saving lives with it, they're overcome with greed.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw a segment just today on the news about tax havens. It's like, for fuck's sake, like, why can't anyone solve this fucking loophole right now? The world's in meltdown. Like, nobody cares about you buying another fucking yacht. Do the right thing. Save some lives, you rich pricks.
I take it you're making a veiled reference to Richard Branson at the moment.
And Richard Branson's a cunt, but all billionaires are fucking immoral.
What about Bill Gates?
No billionaire can achieve that level of wealth without exploiting someone along the way. And all of them have exploited many people in their lives.
Yeah.
Whether or not they donate a fair amount of it isn't going to change that, and it makes that.
But everybody is I'm playing devil's advocate. Everybody is guilty of a certain amount of exploitation, whether that be relying on me to do more washing up than you do, or. But you know what I mean? There's a balance. For instance, Richard Branson's situation, sitting with his wherever his personal island is, and saying that Virgin Atlantic's going to need bailing out, as opposed to somebody like Bill Gates, I wouldn't say that they were both.
They're not equally evil, but they're both evil.
Right. I've not heard a huge amount of bad stuff about Bill Gates, apart from the fact that he stole the software that Microsoft was built on. But
It's just sort of like there's this sort of thing of where those donations become more like they're not actually losing as much as you'd think they are, because they're gaining more through good PR.
yeah,
Like, they'll probably make money off of that donation because people like them more.
yeah,
And it's a minuscule portion of their net worth normally, like
yeah,
several million, which is more than you or I could ever donate, but as a portion of, say, Bill Gates' net worth is
Do you think everything? I mean, let's theorize. We're talking about progress, so we can kind of link this.
Yeah. His net worth is 102 billion. So I think I did see that he'd donated, I think, 100 million or thereabouts.
I'm surprised his salary's only $1 million.
Well, that's what he gets paid, like, in hard cash, I guess. Or the rest of it's going to be in assets or stock, isn't it?
I don't know.
So yeah, sorry.
But that kind of just, I don't, that betrays for me the system as it is. That's his net worth. The use of the word worth in today's. You trying to work out how many zeros there are in 102 billion?
Oh, Jesus, that's E-4. And just times that by 10 because I can't remember how that works. Yeah. So that would be 0. Hang on.
What are you talking about?
Just a sec. That would be 1%. Yeah, that would be 0.0 0.09% of his net worth, roughly 0.1% of his net worth. 100 million. Bill Gates donating that.
Right.
So say my net worth, for example, which I think is about £500.
No, it's got to be more than that.
Oh, I guess so. In like possessions, let's go with a few £1,000. I mean, I don't have that much debt, which is counting in my favour. Your net worth's probably actually negative, to be honest.
Oh yeah, definitely. I would imagine a lot of people do.
Well, yeah. It's 0. There we go. Yeah, that would be like me donating £3, I think, roughly. Which, it's something, but like, it's not really gonna, like, I don't expect a round of applause for that, and I shouldn't.
Yeah, because people aren't seeing that amount that he donates in terms of what it means to him. They're seeing it in terms of what it would mean to them.
Yeah. But like, he can afford to, and many of these billionaires. I mean, Bill Gates is amongst the billionaires one of the better ones, I will admit, from what I've seen. But yeah, if they donate several billion, they still have many more billions than any of us would ever see.
So what would progress out of the situation we're in at the moment actually mean? Do you think, let's theorize that there's a vaccine discovered in 18 months' time, or say by the end of 2021. After that point, do you think things will return to the same as they were before? Yeah,
broadly, because I've lost the ability to think that anything will ever fundamentally change.
Yeah, I'm kind of... I used to be more optimistic than...
Jeremy Corbyn's no longer a leader of the Labour Party, which sort of sounds deaf for a lot of the progressive part of Labour.
What do you think of Keir Starmer?
I mean, there's worse, but he's not particularly inspiring, to be honest.
How would you compare him to Tony Blair?
Oh, better.
Yeah.
I mean, he is at least...
Labour.
I guess, at the very least, centre. Tony Blair was quite comfortably right-wing.
Yeah. Oh, excuse me. That was a yawn. Sorry. You're not boring me.
Also, as of yet, Keir Starmer hasn't committed any war crimes, so that counts in his favour.
As of yet.
Well...
I wonder how long it's going to be before Bojo's back in the saddle.
Oh, sorry. I just got a nasty image in my head.
Was it S&M based?
No, that's worse. Oh, Jesus. Also, sadly, I think about 4 days after that, quite sort of sadly mirroring, Bernie Sanders suspended his presidential campaign.
Right.
Because it was very unlikely that he was going to get the nomination now. He has now endorsed Joe Biden. I'm not sure how sincere that is. I think he is just sort of playing ball, but...
I did read because the IMF, International Monetary Fund, is that right? Is that what it stands for?
Yeah, I think so.
Have advised both the EU and the UK to extend the transition deadline for Brexit.
I mean...
And...
anyone in their right mind would advise them to extend it under normal
I don't know whether it's true, but I did read in a news report that the UK government has said that they're not extending it under any circumstances.
Well, that's because they've got to keep up this image of strength and, no, we'll just take it on the chin and we can do whatever we want. We'll get Brexit done.
I wonder if them gowns have arrived from Turkey yet.
What?
There were supposed to be 400,000 PPE gowns arriving for NHS staff 2 days.
By the way,
2 days ago,
I kept thinking this was actually. I kept thinking the acronym PPE was something to do with getting paid the right amount. It actually stands for personal protective equipment, which I had to Google.
What did you think it meant?
I thought it was something to do with nurses getting paid a fair amount.
You're thinking PAYE?
Well, I don't know. I mean, people just started using the acronym and never actually explained what it was.
Oh, right, okay. Yes, I mean, they're having to kind of wash stuff and use it again that's sort of single use at the moment.
Yeah, they've sort of, from what I've seen, done a lot of sort of using not exactly ideal equipment like school chemistry goggles. The
difficult thing that's happening at the moment, though, is that the people who are asking the difficult questions of the government and basically pointing a finger and saying, look, you're basically incompetent, you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, you haven't been for a long time, they're kind of being called out by people who are kind of saying, look, yes, we do need to ask all these questions, but now's not the time.
Yeah. Well, you always get that thing with crises where people are like, oh, don't politicize it, even though it's being managed fucking terribly.
Well,
the people
it is political
who are in charge were told repeatedly that they were endangering people because they hadn't prepared the NHS sufficiently for this. They were underfunding things.
Well, we've known this was coming for years. It wasn't a matter of if, it was when.
They were told about leaving the EU would make it a lot more difficult to handle a pandemic like this. And I think Uh,
Well,
we I say recently, at some point, refused to pay into what is supposed to be dealing with this in the EU because we have officially left.
yeah. Well, we don't have a say at the moment, do we? We don't have any. We're not at the table anymore. We're in the transition period, but we're not kind of involved anymore. I see. Has he actually suspended the US funding for the WHO? Trump.
I think he has, but it's sort of difficult with Trump because, like, he announces something like on the fly, like he just came up with it. Like someone asked him something, he was just like, yeah, we'll do that. Like to a journalist asking it, and like everyone around him's like running about like, what, we didn't know this was going to be a thing. But yeah, he says that it's because the WHO is too geared towards China.
I'm getting bored with incompetence. It's like I used to get annoyed by it and like get infuriated by it and be ready to go out and protest and that. But I'm just bored with it now. It's just the norm. It's like fucking idiots in charge. That's not how it should be.
Yeah, but it's sort of like also the people that are meant to be opposing them are kind of lackluster, to be honest. From what I've seen. You got Joe Biden in the US.
That's a difficult one, though, isn't it? I mean, for anyone who's not a fucking idiot, protesting against anything is really difficult at the moment.
Yeah, but like smart people know what they're doing with this and are able to do like online protests, but I guess it's sort of like, well, everyone's off work anyway, or everyone that can't do work is not working anyway, so you can't really strike, can you?
It's everything's just kind of. I'm actually, once I get past this summer, once I get to September, I'm a lot less worried about my personal situation money wise, but the world is gonna have some difficult times ahead, isn't it?
Yes.
So progress isn't going to... See, the thing is, as well, I know it doesn't help at the moment, but after all this has settled down and things do turn around and we start to build things back up again, in the past, following major global events such as world wars, there tends to be a big kind of upswing in the direction of the economies of the world because everything's being kind of,
I guess,
built
but like having a high GDP, having loads of wealth, just this idea of constant creation of wealth.
Yeah.
What's it worth if it's not actually
That's what got us in this mess.
If it's not actually going to the people that need it?
Yeah.
It's just sort of this mindless pursuing of a bigger number. Like,
so how do we solve it?
Some of the most powerful people in the world are just in a dick measuring contest with one another whilst everyone else is starving.
Do you think Donald Trump can even see his dick? You think it's like a cheesy what's it?
I don't want to think about that.
It's just like a little what's it.
Well, according to Stormy Daniels, it's mushroom shaped.
Oh. Mm.
Have you taken shrooms?
I have, yeah.
Yeah. What were they like?
Clockwork Neon.
Was that the name of like the type, I guess?
No, it's the only description I can think of to explain the experience.
Okay. Sounds like a sort of...
Yeah, there were like neon lights in the sky, and then in a darkened room there was like sort of don't know, a clockwork kind of.
Did you like?
Like this spinning wheel thing on the Mac. But like just having loads of those going on all. So, well, are you trying to, how do you explain something to somebody who has never experienced anything like
Fair. But okay. Yeah. I mean, one good thing about you getting
one
off your face on many drugs throughout the
eons.
90s mainly. I guess. Maybe late 80s.
Yeah, no, it was mainly been the 90s, I think.
Okay. Is that I'm unlikely to want to take them based on your account? Yeah, I mean, it is a difficult thing because it's sort of, I feel like we're sort of told this thing of other things constantly.
I want an electric car.
You got a sort of like a hybrid, don't you?
No.
Alright.
No, I've got a fucking diesel at the moment.
Oh, I thought it was sort of half and half.
No. Grandad's got a half and half.
I think that might be what I was thinking of.
And I would, snap one up in an instant if I had the money. But
Yeah, I
it's
mean,
too
that's...
expensive at the moment, and the infrastructure's not there.
Yeah, I mean, there's the infrastructure thing, but there's also, like, with a lot of the things that are better for the environment, they do cost more.
The difficult thing at the moment, I mean, obviously we want to be going away from fossil fuels as we progress into the future, but I'm trying to link it back there. But at the moment, the price of oil's plummeted.
Is that because I remember there was something going on with Russia being
multiple things going on. I think now is it OPEC? See, cartels aren't legally really supposed to exist, are they? But OPEC kind of is one.
I think cartel is a legal term. It's just
shady as fuck.
Some cartels obviously don't follow the law.
Yeah. Well, anyway, they've had this international agreement to reduce production because the price was plummeting, and it's not stopped it. It's still going down. Apparently the price of oil at the moment is the lowest it's been since the 1980s.
All right.
Which is fucking annoying because it just goes to show how much of what we pay for goes to the government on fuel duty. Because, it's certainly not down at the 1980s prices at the petrol pump.
I mean, it would be alright if it was actually going to where it needs to be going and they were actually properly funding anything. Just a sort of little note on, I guess, progress vaguely. I watched a video the other day on a film called Frost Nixon.
Oh, I've seen that, it's good.
Which basically tells the story of a British journalist who's...
it's Martin Sheen, isn't it, that plays him?
Yeah. I think
Fantastic
the
performance.
guy's name is David Frost.
Yeah. It was weird when I saw that because I knew of David Frost from when breakfast TV first started. Because when I was your age, or possibly a bit younger, TV didn't start till 9 o'clock in the morning. Before that, you had like something called CFAX. Like text-based stuff on the screen, and then a test card would come up.
Is that like teletext?
Yeah. It was teletext. Yeah, CFAX was the BBC's version of it.
They still did have that until fairly recently. They've stopped it now, though.
But he was one of the first presenters on Breakfast Time TV. So the idea of him being like an up and coming influential journalist in whenever it was, it was a bit bizarre.
He was sort of.
He used to go, "Hello, good morning, and welcome."
A lot of the news organisations that he approached weren't too fond of him because he was mainly doing that, I think, to like get ratings and
right.
He fundamentally was someone who knew about marketing more than I think actual journalism.
Yeah.
Which I think in the film is meant to be like why he got the interview and got more out of him.
Yeah.
But I mean, that sort of presents the thing of this underdog taking on a terrible man, Richard Nixon, and he beats the bad guy and gets something out of him, and hooray, he was held to account for terrible actions. But in reality, no, that absolutely didn't happen. One of the lines in the film, which I think is, to paraphrase, I took part in a cover-up, something along those lines. But in reality, the actual story, he was specifically saying, "Oh, you want to say that I was involved in a cover-up?" So they basically took that quote out of context to mean something completely different. And I think Gerald Ford, which was Nixon's vice president through his later years, because I think his original vice president went for some reason. Gerald Ford pardoned him when he got the presidency, so he didn't have to face for any crimes.
No,
actually.
I mean, I suppose the worst that's really happened is that is historical. His kind of story in the history books hasn't been kind.
No, but he continued to have influence in politics.
Yeah. Does it really matter if you're remembered well?
Well, he certainly didn't have a conscience, or at least it didn't seem like he did. And he wrote several best-selling books.
Yeah.
Before dying in the 90s, never facing a judge for his many crimes against humanity.
Yeah.
So I think that's sort of the point of that video, is that there's this sort of lie that these monsters do get held to account.
There is this kind of innate assumption as well that your own sort of head of states or your own sort of... Although we know that politicians are corrupt and we see incompetence and stuff like that, you don't tend to believe that your own head of state can be like an evil person. You know, like the news tends to paint other people's leaders as
evil. That's the news. And they've got an agenda, of course. But no, I think, honestly, based on a cursory glance at his Wikipedia page the other day, the only prime minister that I can say was fundamentally good is Clement Attlee.
Right.
Largely because he created the NHS. I think he was anti-imperialist.
Right.
Which is a big thing, especially as you get onto the older prime ministers. Like Winston Churchill is often held up as some sort of paragon of virtue despite committing genocide in Rwanda, I think.
I heard...
No, it might not be Rwanda. I think
there
it
was
might be Uganda.
There was a newspaper article that was talking about how Boris Johnson had been kind of touted as being a kind of a Churchill kind of character.
I think he wants himself to be that sort of thing.
But what's actually happening, or what has actually happened, it seems that he's more of a Neville Chamberlain. So it's almost like they were saying, but who is gonna be the Churchill that takes over from Boris Johnson? Because Neville Chamberlain basically gave way to Churchill because he was pretty inept. You know?
I mean, that's the story that we get. I imagine it's probably a lot more complicated than that. At the time.
Me and Mum watched a great series. I don't think we ever watched the 4th episode of it, actually. It was a 4-part series, BBC. It was, I can't remember what it was called, but it was all about that, the lead up to war and Churchill's. I think it might have just been called Churchill, actually. Maybe. Don't know.
But the thing is, I think a lot of these sort of leaders that depend on this sort of false image of them being really strong and them standing up to coronavirus. It's like, you can't stand up to a virus.
That was what pissed me off.
He doesn't care.
Yeah, the interview with
fearless you are.
Is it William? Is he the helicopter pilot? Prince William? Is it William or Harry? I don't know. One of them. The one that's married. The one that's married to her. The one that they had a baby last year. I don't know. Anyway, but basically, he was talking about when his dad got coronavirus, Prince Charles. And it really pissed me off because he was saying one of the things that he said was like, if anybody can beat this virus, he can. And it's like, I just thought, fuck off!
What is he, like in his 80s or something? He's
thing
not
is,
exactly well geared to do.
I know what he means. I know why you would want to make yourself feel good or make the other person feel good by saying that, but it's
unhelpful.
And I think it betrays an attitude that's rife through society, that actually just having fortitude is gonna save you from anything.
And it's why I think a lot of people feel absolutely okay saying fuck you to homeless people, basically.
Yeah.
Not like, oh well, if you were strong enough, you'd be able to get through this on your own. You'd be able to lift yourself out.
Yeah.
That's the thing. They talk about lifting yourself out of poverty. It's like, no, you.
And there's the same attitude to mental health as well.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, where are you supposed to get that fortitude from if your brain is ill? That's like saying to somebody, oh, you're crippled, you're in a wheelchair. It's just because you're not strong enough to stand up and walk,
I think we probably got a podcast, episode with a topic on something to do with mental health fairly soon, so I'm probably going to keep off. There's a video that I want to share then that would quite pertain to this. But yeah, that sort of talks about, I remember, it's Philosophy Tube, if you remember him. And he's talking about abuse in a relationship.
Right.
And his mum saying to him that she was quite shocked when she heard, because she couldn't ever imagine him being afraid of anyone.
Right.
Because he talked about a personal experience with someone that he was in a relationship with.
Well, we'll leave that then for that episode.
Yes. But yeah, I think that sort of view of that people can just be strong enough to get through this is sort of why a lot of ignorant fucks are out protesting in America and in other places in the world.
What do you think progress actually is?
It's a difficult thing, because it's sort of particularly a bit away from coronavirus because this has been particularly heavy on that. Like various rights movements.
Literally, it just means moving forward, doesn't it?
Yeah, but like it's very frustrating. It gets very frustrating quite quickly because we know where we should be, or at least we have a fairly clear vision. The people in these movements know what the right thing is, but it's always like, oh no, but we have to do it. We have to do it gently because we don't want to scare people.
Well, the other thing is, I mean, regardless of how quickly you make progress towards a specific point or a specific ideology or how things should be, do you ever actually reach the ideal, or is it the case that with progress, it's only once you get to a particular point that you can then see the shortcomings that we still need to work towards? That progress is a like almost an infinite process.
I'll have to look up the quote for this. I
mean, there's no such thing as a utopian society.
No. I don't think it was. I think I actually saw it in like a reply to something. Someone saying a friend of theirs told them that we fight to make sure that our grandparents see us as monsters. Not grandparents, grandchildren, sorry.
Right.
So, sort of that we've moved forward enough that when our grandchildren's time comes...
I see what you mean, yeah.
They see our time as backwards and us as bad.
But, I mean, see, looking at that... Yeah, but at the same time, some people seem to hang on to that and kind of look on it as the golden days, the good old days. For instance, if your grandparents are fully with the progress that's been made, and I mean, like, for instance, I when I look back, I don't look back at, like a lot of people my age look back at how the 70s and 80s were and have this kind of rosy image in their head.
Yeah.
About how things were much better. Some things were, but a lot wasn't,
And sort of like, I look, so I see, this is a weird thing of sort of, I've been thinking about this a fair amount recently, of like, being LGBT, that I almost, and it might be being like younger and being more like connected through the internet, that I feel like I almost exist in a different culture to a lot of the people around me. Like, I don't feel any pride in the British flag. I think it stands for many atrocities and quite a nasty attitude in the world, to be honest. And the Scottish flag, I think, is bad. It doesn't represent anything bad in particular, but I don't feel any identity towards that. But the pride flags, I feel it means something to me. And I feel like, if someone says that the LGBT is sort of like, oh, like, no, we're not the same and we have our differences, but like, I can get you. You're not gonna. You get it, basically. That makes sense.
Yeah, but I can see identifying with a philosophy or an organisation that has a particular standpoint on something. I can't get my head around nationalism in terms of being patriotic simply because it's because how do you guard against a country turning bad if you don't question that country. Like you can't just you shouldn't just not worship the flag, but you can't just claim that your country is great, because
I find that
in some ways it will be, in some ways it won't, but it's always potentially going to change for the better or worse. It's not good because it's where you're from.
Quite interesting when people start trying to justify, like for example, our country's actions in the Middle East, and
Do you mean UK?
Yeah. And other Western countries, because they sort of have some sort of that allied, and they have some sort of similar cultural things. So there's this sort of idea of you very quickly get to quite an uncomfortable thing of, oh, but our culture is better than theirs. Of like, oh, well, they don't have these rights, and for example, in Saudi Arabia. I mean, I say in Saudi Arabia, but like we sell fucking arms to them, so how good are we in that situation? They also use those arms to fuel one of the worst humanitarian crises in history, apparently, in Yemen.
See, this is something that's occurred to me specifically because of, and I'm sorry to bring it back to the big C word, but the way a society is organised can seem to be not ideal in some circumstances, but can be ideal in others. Like our ability to track the progress of this virus has been hampered by our civil rights legislation.
Right.
But there are countries that have dealt with this a lot more effectively because of the fact that they can track their citizen movements. So that's something that I found interesting. I'm not saying that anything is right or wrong in that. It's interesting to see that we are less able to follow it as closely because of the civil rights protections that we have.
I mean, with that, it's sort of, it gets quite.
I know Google are handing over data that I think is anonymous in terms of statistics about the population's general movement behaviour, if you like, rather than identifying people, just kind of statistics around how much the population is moving around and compared to before.
I mean, the main sort of interesting point on that is quite often it seems that those civil liberties can be waived when it comes to terrorism, though. And that's much less deadly. You're much less likely to be killed by.
The other thing as well is that terrorism is always painted in a bad light, but one person's terrorist is another person's freedom fighter.
Well, yeah, Nelson Mandela was quite often called a terrorist. He's now lauded as a hero by most people.
I've seen him.
But personally.
I saw him give a speech in Trafalgar Square, or was it a concert? Can't remember what it was.
Interesting.
I think it was something to do with something. Can't remember what it was. I can remember R.E.M. played there, though.
Was that like once he was president?
It was really old. It was in the 90s, right, okay.
But yeah, I mean, looking at Palestine, that's quite a contested subject because I know particularly the US has a very strong view on it. We have a fairly strong view on it where I think a lot of politicians have to be quite careful. Like Jeremy Corbyn was quite often slated and called a terrorist supporter, which, to be honest, sounds pretty fucking ridiculous saying it out loud, but people genuinely believe this shit. Just for, like, having some sort of solidarity with Palestinian people.
Yeah, it's scary, isn't it? Because people, I think, it's scary how many people automatically assume that somebody who's Palestinian doesn't deserve any sympathy.
Which, yeah, I think I have explained this before. Sort of, like, I just find it quite bizarre caring about someone more because they happen to be born on the same rock as you. This same specific piece of rock that has some lines drawn around it. I mean, say if you are American and you're born in Florida and someone else is born in Washington, you're both American, but you're much closer, literally, like geographically, to someone born in Cuba. But because of that sort of national identity thing,
there's a bit of a difficulty though at the moment as well that's going on with, and it's not been done necessarily immediately for sinister reasons, but a lot of borders have been closed to prevent this. But I mean, I was thinking the globalization issue. Obviously, that means that a disease can spread a lot quicker. But I wonder what is going to happen as things progress out of these next couple of years. I just worry that some things that aren't progressive are going to remain in place. You know.
Well, there's that famous phrase, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, isn't it?
I suppose. What do you see as the way forward for Scotland?
Ooh. Like, in terms of, like, should it be independent?
And do you think it will be?
I think it's inevitable that... I think it's inevitable that we'll have a referendum at some point in the next decade. Whether or not that's legally binding, or, like, recognised by the UK government, don't know. It's sort of hard to imagine, but we might have even something like Catalonia, who at some point over last year or the year before that, all the leaders of the independence movement, and which I think includes quite a lot of leaders of one of the main opposition parties there, were rounded up and put in prison.
Yeah, that's...
which is quite concerning, especially given Spain's history with, like, fascism and stuff.
Yeah. I've forgotten. I had a train of thought in my mind then, and I was going to go somewhere with it, and I've forgotten what it was. No, it's gone. Well, we were talking about Scotland.
Yeah. I don't know. It's that sort of weird thing of, like...
Oh, yeah, that was it. Because you said that you don't tend to follow the news that closely, did you know about the flights that were chartered from Romania?
No.
Well, one of the problems that they've been worrying about is with the coronavirus has been the ability to harvest fruit, the fruit picking malarkey. Right. So they've been basically the farming communities have been doing like a big push to try and recruit British fruit pickers so that we could keep the supplies going, food supplies going. And they've had, they said for the first time since the 80s, they've actually had British people applying for it, but nowhere near enough. So they've had to charter several flights to bring Romanians over to pick fruit because there aren't enough British people applying for it to actually stop it rotting in the ground.
I mean, I'm not like against Romanians coming to the UK, but like I think it's the exploitation there is pretty fucked. That like British people consider themselves to be better than that, so they're not willing to work in those conditions. And I'm not sure if they're particularly harsh conditions or if like it is bad pay
so.
there.
Don't know, but I mean, I just think it's not funny, but I think it's ironic that a lot of those have actually left the country recently because they were here doing those jobs, and because of Brexit, they've gone back to Romania, and they actually a lot of them were worried about coming back. They were being interviewed on the news, and they didn't want to come back because of the situation with coronavirus here. They were worried about it, but there's no work over there, so.
Right. Yeah. I don't know a huge amount about Romania, if I'm honest. Beyond like Dracula and stuff, which isn't a particularly.
That's Transylvania.
Which is part of Romania.
Is it?
Yes.
I always used to get that mixed up with Pennsylvania.
Cool.
What next?
I guess it's sort of like the general sort of if you are not aware and you have not read up on your Communist Manifesto, I haven't actually read it, but like I'm vaguely aware of some of the concepts in it. There's sort of this idea that capitalism has to fail before we're ready to move on to socialism, basically.
What constitutes that failure?
Well, that's the thing. It's sort of like, under what conditions are you doing? Under what conditions are you assessing that, really? Because from my standpoint, like on a human level, like it's failed humanity at doing good for humanity, but like it's very good at creating wealth.
See, I feel like we've had
like,
this.
It's essentially sort of, can it sustain itself?
I feel like we've had this kind of conversation before. I don't know whether it was on a podcast, but there is that kind of liberating idea that communism is a progression from capitalism, whereas capitalist democracies tend to see communism as a relic.
Well, that's sort of because that was a failed sort of. I guess. See, it gets quite complicated when talking about socialist and communist politics, because those words are used to describe like most things left of fucking Voldemort. So it's quite difficult to know what people are talking about when they say that, because I think a lot of people, when you say communist, they do think the Soviet Union, but like if you have seen like the Political Compass thing, communism, like totalist communism, is more like stateless and moneyless. Like it's anarcho-communism, I think. Which actually I recently took that test again. I usually like scored like somewhere in the middle of like the bottom left quadrant, which is libertarian left. But now I'm a full fucking anarcho-socialist.
See, I mentioned to you, I think
I'm like right near the bottom left corner.
I mentioned to you a place called Christiania the other night, didn't I?
Yes, we held a quarantine quiz, and you, I think, suggested that as like a double landlocked country.
Yeah, it's not officially a country, but it's a free town in Copenhagen. I don't know what that means. It's a source of controversy. what do you mean? Basically, it's kind of not. I suppose it's approaching what you would have been talking about there. Then, in that it's kind of self-governing, if you like.
So something
I don't
like
think there's
that.
necessarily any kind of law.
Yeah,
there. It's just.
And it does say here, cannabis trade was tolerated by authorities until 2004, which is very appropriate since we are recording this on 420.
That's something I think that Scotland want to are far more progressive about, is legalising all drugs, really, just or decriminalising.
Decriminalising at least. I'm not sure about legalising. I know a big thing, particularly in Glasgow, is like having, I'm not sure what they're called, like rooms where you're safe to use.
Yeah.
Like you can use the drugs in a safe environment. And then I think they do try and have like rehabilitation programs, but it's sort of so you can still, I guess, feed that addiction, but in a safe way where you're not putting yourself in danger. And that does seem to be fairly effective at saving lives. So.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure what the situation of cannabis legalization is in the UK, because it's sort of, I think, like the medical uses, it's okay, I think, kind of.
It's changed so much, so many times, or they've talked about changing it so many times in my life. I mean, there was times when you could get taken, prosecuted for possession of cannabis, but a lot of the time, you've got to have a specific amount, and then they treat you as a dealer, and I don't know. It's just, it's all hypocritical to me, because actually one of the more damaging drugs we're taking while we're doing this podcast.
Well, yeah. Tobacco and alcohol kill many more people a year than cannabis ever has, and to be honest, I don't think there's much hard evidence to say that that cannabis would directly lead to death.
No, nobody's ever died from taking cannabis on its own. I mean, it's the smoking aspect of it that's
I would say that, but like you can still consume cannabis without the smoking.
Well, it's a plant.
Yeah.
So,
but like compared to other drugs, it's probably the safest of like the ones that are presented as being something bad. I mean, people do sort of have this sort of spooky tale of it being like something that starts you on harder drugs, but like, I mean, I'm not exactly the person to ask. I've never actually been asked to. Well, I was actually asked once, but I think it was a joke. So,
but
I don't think that counts.
Do you know what annoys me about that argument is that for me, it's kind of self-fulfilling in that if somebody tries it and finds that they enjoy it and it's all right and they have a laugh and it doesn't do them any harm, that experience in itself is going to cause them to question the validity of the law. So
no.
if it is in any way a gateway, it's maybe just to the point where it's like, well, hang on a minute. If you're saying to me that this stuff's illegal, then why should I believe you about any of the other stuff that you say is illegal?
But like I say, like I am essentially an anarchist. I'm not sure I would define myself as that, because basically I don't think that's politically likely to happen, I think. So I sort of continue to compromise to the nearest thing, which right now is the Green Party.
Yeah.
I mean, I was okay with Corbyn, but like by my standards, you know, he was fairly centrist, to be honest. But, like, most of the UK media would have you believe that he's fucking Stalin or something. Just ridiculous.
I'm going to need either more beer or... Have we got much more to say?
Ooh, gay house.
Gay house.
There's a chapter in Christianity's Wikipedia page called Gay House.
Young gay performers and activists. What's a gay performer? Is that not most people in the theatre world?
I guess probably some people that were doing theatre in Denmark probably came there because in the 70s they wouldn't have been particularly welcome elsewhere.
So, do you think we're making progress as a society in general? I don't mean necessarily just the UK, but just as a global species.
I guess. I mean, things like technologically at least get better, which tend to mean that quality of life generally gets better.
It's a difficult evaluation to make, isn't it? Because you tend to think of progress in terms of an improvement in overall morality, don't you? I suppose. Or at least that's one aspect of it. But it's very difficult to measure that in comparison to how things were, say, 50 or 100 years ago, because the world was a different place.
It's quite a weird thing as well, though. Like, I think most people's, I would hope, a general public opinion, at least on like LGBT issues, not quite sure about race issues, because that's still not particularly great in the UK. But I think public opinion's generally better than what the law actually is. For example, fun fact, did you know that gay and bisexual men still can't donate blood if they've had sex with another man in the last 6 months?
No, I didn't. I can't donate blood, which is a shame. But
I mean,
not because I've had sex with a man in the last 6 months,
but like they do test it afterwards for like STDs and stuff. So that's a remainder from that scare to do with AIDS, and it has no basis in anything. And we still have that. And I hope that most people wouldn't support that. I don't think they do. So that's bizarre. But I think it's just that sort of thing of like, not many people care enough to change that.
Wonder what the situation is with blood donations at the moment.
Well, that is a thing. This has come up more recently because of this.
Because I know they're talking about potentially the UK trialling using blood plasma as a treatment from patients who have recovered from COVID-19. Getting their blood plasma and using it to treat people who are suffering from it now, because the idea being, I think, that there potentially be some kind of resistance in the blood.
I mean, I'm not an expert, obviously. I have a better understanding of biology than most people, but like that does not make me an expert in any way. That doesn't sound particularly scientific to me, but like I
just can't think of plasma without thinking about warp plasma.
Okay.
From Star Trek.
Cool.
Because you get plasma in stars, don't you?
Yeah.
What is plasma?
It's just sort of vaguely fluid, I guess. But well, it's like with stars, like they're so hot that it basically becomes like a neutron soup.
Yeah, I'm thinking like sort of honey or treacle or like syrup kind of stuff.
Not really. I mean, in blood, it is mostly water.
Yeah. Friend of mine made a Sims simulation copy of His Majesty's Theatre in Aberdeen. There's a video of it.
That.
Yeah, including even counting the seats. They are bored in lockdown.
Some people are mental. I mean, to be fair, I have. I do loads of nerdy stuff normally that most people would consider to be soul-drainingly boring. I had, before this started, basically doing like a World Congress thing where like I run elections for every country in the world and do like a bit of research on their political systems and get 10,000 members of a World Congress.
Stop it.
Sorry. But I have more recently started transcribing NerdCube's Desert Bus video.
Okay.
Desert Bus VR video, because I think it would work well as like an 8-act play.
I transcribed Carmina Burana O Fortuna for brass band and a Tchaikovsky symphony movement as well.
You've also transcribed the shitfucks from, well...
The what?
The thing with the DWP.
Oh, God, yeah. That took fucking 2 whole days.
Did you do mine? Or are you planning to do mine at any point?
No, we didn't. They didn't use it anyway.
See, that's the thing, like, you're meant to go to all the I think, or like, to get proper evidence, you have to go to a lot of effort, and they just go, no, we don't care.
Actually, funnily enough, that's a potential progress that is likely to be happening regardless of what happens with independence. It's been put back because of this crisis this year, but very soon disability payments and DWP type stuff is getting devolved to Scotland. So hopefully, I mean, Mum's claim is valid for 3 years, and they've already said, the SNP have already said that they're not going to be doing sort of face-to-face assessments the way that things have been done.
I mean, it makes sense. I mean, they do these face-to-face assessments basically so that they can say that, oh, well, you looked fine to me, even though the nurse doesn't have to say that, but like they can just completely fucking lie.
Well, so you got the change of circumstances form through. Like it took about 2 months to come through, and
yeah.
So hopefully we'll get some progress there. But
yeah, one of the things that I think my mum was particularly angry about, Starstuff was angry about, was it said on her assessment thingy that eye contact was adequate, which I don't think was based on what the nurse that was assessing her said. And if you're not aware, Starstuff's condition, among many other things, means that she has eye spasms, which I believe she had some effect of on that day, where like one of her eyes was closed the whole time. I mean, I wasn't personally there, so I don't know what it was like on that day, but you know, not adequate. I would doubt it would be adequate based on what I know.
No, they just come out with a load of bullshit.
And based on I can't remember any specific details right now, but they did tell a lot of lies in my assessment as well that just flew in the face of what I'd actually said, or they just ignored entire parts that were quite important to why I was applying in the first place. Like, they're really bad with mental health stuff. I mean, and basically their mental health stuff boils down to, are you retarded? Or
well, that's
do you have significant learning difficulties, it doesn't really go any further than that. And to be honest, I doubt it'd be particularly decent with that as well.
Anyway, shall we draw to a close soon? Because I fancy watching a sex education.
Okay, I think we've
progressed as far as we can.
Yeah, I mean, we're back though.
Yeah, we just wanted to get something out there, didn't we?
Yeah, I have edited. It might have been up. I have edited reviews. I still need to edit.
It's scheduled. It is.
Oh, good.
Posted and scheduled.
So you should have seen that. I didn't address any of this stuff then because that was recorded like back in February, maybe even January, because we have been off for a while.
Mm-hmm. So I'll time this one for 9 o'clock Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
And we shall see what happens.
Indeed.
As time progresses between now and then. I don't. It's weird. I don't feel like this has been a standard, normal episode. It's just it's just like.
I mean, it was a bit slow to start, but I think we have gotten back into the flow of it a bit. Yeah. But as just a sort of note on progress, I don't know if. It constantly gets quite frustrating because at least I'm, and I hope you guys are fairly conscious of what should be, and it's always frustrating that, you know, things will never be quite what they should be, but hopefully as more of the old buggers die off, we move forward a bit.
Well, just out of interest, our stats on our podcast platform, remembering when we're talking about progress, certainly in the political realm, the majority of our listenership are in a different place. I think 78% of our listeners are in America.
Oh, right.
Well, United States specifically.
Surprising.
Yeah.
I would have expected a fair portion, but I would have thought most of them have been British.
So,
hello, Americans.
I would say if any of you are out protesting against the lockdown,
blink if you need help.
Fuck off. Yeah, don't bother listening to us because yeah.
Good luck with your
everything. Apparently there's a video out with him dealing with a packet of Wotsits or something.
What?
I think we should maybe watch this. Ryan mentioned it on I think it was Customers Always Weird.
I doubt it's Wotsits. It's probably Cheetos.
Yeah, probably, yeah. Trump Cheetos Cheeto dust, yeah, that'll be the one. Let's have a look. Possibly. What do you mean I'm so old?
You Google, like...
Oh, fuck off.
Nan.
Oh, I can't find it.
Are you sure it was real?
Oh, this could be it. Cheeto Dust presents.
I don't think this has anything to do with Trump.
Power of Poutine.
No.
No, okay. All right, then something to do with Trump opening a packet of Cheetos and getting orange stuff all over him.
I don't care.
Okay.
Right.
Say goodbye, I'll look for it after, because I want to see it.
Okay. Any final thoughts?
Let's get pissed.
Okay. Thoughtful as always.
Sex education, still game.
Throw up over myself and into the toilet.
Not again.
Hopefully not. I want to have a bath because I still haven't washed after throwing up on myself last night.
You'd only had a couple of cans as well. You hadn't eaten much though, had you?
No, it affects me weirdly differently on different days. Like, At Christmas and New Year's, I got absolutely fucking shit-faced, but I didn't vomit once. And before, on the night that I got a concussion, I had loads. I mean, I think dancing did help then, but yeah, for some reason, I think it's like if I go to sleep.
Yeah. Well, this is why I kind of got you Tenants this time, because it's a bit weaker than Stella's. Not the best.
I mean,
anyway,
it does make me scared to drink alone, so I guess that's a positive.
Yeah. Anyway, let's wind this up.
Yes. Anything else to say?
Bye.
Okay. I've been Firebolt.
And I've been the Arbiter.
And he's been a twat. Goodbye.
Bye. Chug, 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 chug. Splat.
I can't beat you,
You can't, no. No booping.
This podcast is part of the After Dark Podcast Network.